church leaders need to stop preaching and teaching about relationships and money. Also, they need to stop asking people for money all the time, but here's why. I'm going to give the why for people who don't go to church and for people who do go to church. Starting with the people who don't go to church, because that's most of the people who watch my TikTok stuff. The reason that church leaders talk about relationships and money oftentimes, because I am a church leader. I've been in lots of consultation meetings with church leaders, and they think that it is important to do that because it reaches out to people who are interested in those things, who have kids or need money help. It's honestly a tool to invite people and to find ways to get people to think that they might want to spend time inside your church, inside a worship service. But church leaders, listen to me. You've got to stop this. You've got to stop this because the world has changed. There was a time in the past in which people gave the church default authority in all areas of life, where they allowed a pastor to act as if they were an expert in all things relational and financial and spiritual and communal and political. That's not the world we live in today. I can tell you firsthand that if you follow the advice that a lot of the pastors are giving in their sermon on relationships or in their sermon on finances, you are going to have bad relationships and bad finances. And it's really simple because they are not licensed marriage and family therapists. Those pastors are not licensed public accountants or any of those things. They're just pastors. And if you aren't licensed in those things, you don't have the qualifications. And people in the rest of the real world don't give you authority to speak into those matters. And so when they hear you speaking on things that you are not an expert and you're not qualified in, it actually does much more harm than good for your reputation and people wanting to come and listen to you and be in your church. Also, if there's one thing that I have confirmed by being here on TikTok, it is that the people who don't go to your church and actually show up at some point are very much irritated and offended and, put off by the fact that within the first couple of minutes, you're asking them for money. There are lots of ways to deal with donations. There are lots of ways to deal with income streams for churches. And if you really want people to keep coming to your church, you're going to have to stop asking them for money right when they get there. So what do you talk about? Well, you talk about the things upon which you have actual ground to stand, the things that you have authority and qualification. And for the church, that's really three areas. The first one is community. When people come to a church, almost always they are looking for community, for relationships. They have some connection in their past often where they had a good group of friends that went to a church that shared similar morals and ethics to them, and that's what they are looking for in your church. And so number one, you've got to talk about and think about and help people establish community. The next thing that people talk about over and over again, it's not surprising, is that they feel like the church should actually be making a positive impact in their world. They should be dealing with social issues and feeding hungry people and all of that kind of stuff. And then last, and ultimately not least, is you actually have streams, very long established historical paths to help people connect with God. Those are important. People actually do care about that. What they don't care about is you trying to bait and switch them, get them to come and talk about teenagers so that you can give them money, or talk about their spouse or their finances so that you can get another attendance person, right? That's what they don't want. Community, a purpose greater than themselves, and a connection with God, those are things they're up for listening to you talk about. So talk about those things.